Hello and welcome to ET Garage. I'm Eugene Torta. I want to thank everybody that's subscribed so far. I'm getting closer and closer, inch by inch, to being monetized, and I want to thank everybody that's subscribed, and I hope my videos are helpful. Like I said, in the future, this is not what you would call a cheap and easy project to do on a C4 Corvette, but I'm going to try and do more of those in the future once I'm done with this brake upgrade. But today's video is going to be about the Wilwood big brake upgrade and everything I learned. If you didn't see the last video, that was really the first one. I went over putting the two-piece rotors together and the difference between a two-piece rotor and a floating rotor, and some tips on things I learned and tips I gave. I did go ahead and safety wire those to also those bolts that come with the kit are already pre-drilled for the safety wire, so if you decide to do that, it makes it a lot easier. You don't have to pre-drill those bolt heads. But anyway, be back in a second. Okay, first things I'm going to go over is the weight difference. I thought it was total weight was going to be a lot more, was going to be more than the stock brakes. This is the stock brake caliber and bracket, and this is an aftermarket rotor. I forgot which brand it is, but it is a quality high carbon slotted rotor that was black e-coated, and I don't know if you can see it, but I did manage to burn that black e-coat off. But surprisingly, even though this brake rotor here weighs more than this brake rotor, than the base model brake rotors, I don't know how they weigh compared to the heavy duty brake rotors. I'm assuming the heavy duty brake rotors are actually way more, but because this has an aluminum hat, that makes it lighter, and the caliber and the bracket are a lot lighter than the bracket, the stock caliber and bracket. So it ends up, total weight ends up about 4 pounds less per side. I weighed this on my bathroom scale, which isn't very accurate. The Wilwood package came in at like 18 pounds, and the factory package came in at 22 pounds. So that's just something I want to let you know, that it is lighter. Unfortunately, the rotating mass is more. Anytime you put bigger brake rotor, that's what's going to happen, unless you're using carbon ceramic, which is ridiculously expensive and totally useless on the street, in my opinion. But another thing I will be changing is my hub assemblies. Now, these are Timkins. I originally ordered Moog, and I was waiting and waiting. I contacted Summit, and they contacted Moog and then got back to me. Apparently, they are not. These hub assemblies from Moog are not available at this time. So I went to Rock Auto, and thank God for Rock Auto. I'm not sponsored by any of these companies, by the way. Even though Summit's great, they always get everything to me quick. I went to Rock Auto because they had Timken bearings, and they got them to me really quick. That was great. Rock Auto is another great place to do business with. And couple of things I learned. For instance, I already did the passenger side, and I'll go over why I did that here in a second. And I'll show you. There we go. Whoop, let me get a better view. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. And there it is. This actually went together very easily. It went together and it bled very easily, a lot easier than I thought. I'm going to go over that here in a few minutes, things that I learned. But anyway, getting back over here. A couple of things I learned. Well, first off, let me say there's two things I don't like about the kit. They don't come with the hose. This comes with you have to order a hose kit separate. And these rubber plugs or dust caps, I don't know if you can see that, those don't come with them. So you have to order them separate. And on the Wilwood calipers that come with this kit, they have bleed screws on the bottom. This would be the bottom. This is going to sit like that. And these are bleed screws on the top. Before you install this caliper, you definitely, what I found is you definitely want to install these rubber dust caps on the bottom and make sure these are tight before you do that. That's something I found out doing that other side. And the reason I did the passenger side, by the way, is first, is because on a 90 Corvette, brake fluid travels from the master cylinder into through the ABS, which is located behind the driver's seat in the compartment, then all the way back forward to the right front wheel. That makes the right front wheel the furthest from the master cylinder, and you always want to bleed them first. So I went ahead, did that, and bled that, and that I'm going to show you what I used to bleed. Just let me switch camera positions here real quick. Okay, we're set up over here, and normally when I bleed brakes, I prefer to use speed bleeders, which are just the bleeding screw that's on your caliper that has a one-way check valve. You can buy them. Usually they make them for all sorts of makes and calibers. They don't make them for these Wilwoods. Wilwood does not recommend them. So what I did was I went to Napa. If you've seen my last video, I got this one-way bleeding hose, has a one-way valve in it, and it kept popping off. And I'll leave links down in the description to everything I used. And it didn't, it actually didn't work. And these are really cheap at Napa too. And so while I was there, there was another item I thought was kind of unique, was this item. And it comes with all sorts of stuff. Here, like I said, I'll leave links in the description box below. And it has a little magnet, sticks to your frame, just sticks there, and basically just has like a little one-way air valve, I guess, so the fluid just flows one way. That's the only thing I could think, because it's just a bottle with a hose. But this thing worked fantastic. I like this better than the speed bleeders and a vacuum bleeder. Like, I have a vacuum bleeder. Of course, I went to go use it to suck the fluid out of the master cylinder, and it died. It wouldn't work, you know. So I don't know what the story is with that. It's getting old. It's time for a new one. And so I ended up using that little thing that I didn't think would do anything, and I can't remember the price, but like I said, I'll leave links to the description. It was less than $10, I know that. But that worked fantastic. I was surprised. Now, let's get on to some other tips and tricks. Something I should point out here is that you could probably do this whole brake swap in about 2 hours without any problems at all. I use power tools. That always makes it a lot quicker. But you can do this job with hand tools with no problem. Well, no problem if everything is not corroded. Everything on here, like the main bolts, let me see if I can get a close-up of that. That right there, like those main bolts will be Loctited on. And if you're going to be doing the hub assemblies, those bolts will be Loctited on also. So something to keep in mind. So use heat with those before you take them off. That'll save you a lot of trouble. You don't need to use a torch. I personally don't like using an open flame. I'll always use a heat gun first. If that doesn't work, then I'll use a flame. Heat gun does take a little bit longer than the torch, I'll say that. Like I said, I use power tools. Even with the power tools, I still go ahead and heat those bolts up just a little bit, because they will be Loctited on. And you do not need to change your hub assembly. The reason I'm doing it, if you're wondering, is I feel they're getting near the end of their service life. And I went ahead and painted them, like I said earlier, because I don't want them rusting like that one did. So, so that's about tips and tricks that I can think of. Oh, there is one other trick you should know about. Let me get another close-up view again. And that is the banjo bolt right here for the factory style banjo bolt that connects to the brake caliper. Now, when you remove the old setup, the old brakes, you just want to remove the brake caliper bracket. Just remove those two big bolts and let this hang, or tie it up better yet, tie it up somewhere so you're not stressing the old line. And the reason you want to do that is you want to assemble everything and then mount your brake caliper and pads and bracket and all that, and because that all needs to be shimmed and aligned, and I'll go over that here in a few minutes. And once you get that all done and test fit the wheel, check for clearances, then go ahead, remove your line, and go ahead and install your line and bleed it. Otherwise, if you just go ahead and disconnect the line first, you're gonna have fluid draining out all over. You'll end up getting air in the system all the way back to the ABS, and you'll need to actuate that ABS to get the air out. So this will make it easier if you do it that way. Also, loosen that up. Break that loose first before you take this caliper off. It'll make it a lot easier. And then just snug it back up so it doesn't leak. Because when you go to take it off later, it's going to be, well, the caliper is hanging and not bolted to anything. It's going to make it difficult. So that's another tip I have for you. Now, I guess I'll go ahead and disassemble this, get the hub on. I'm not going to go over doing the hub assembly. They're fairly simple. 4 bolts. Always remove your ABS sensor first so you don't damage it. And of course, you got to remove your brake caliper bracket assembly, the whole thing. Get it out of the way in order to get the brake rotor off. So you do that first. But also, there should be an O-ring on there on the front ones. So make sure you use an O-ring. Either a new ring or save the old one that comes off, because every time I bought front hub assemblies for these, they never come with an O-ring. That's nothing big. You can just go to the hardware store and get an O-ring that fits if you don't have one. All right, let me go get to getting that off. And then I'll go over a couple of more tips. Like I said, you could probably do this whole thing in 2 hours, depending how fussy you are. I mean, if you're going to get in there and start cleaning all the parts and front end, that's a really good time to do it. Then you better plan on a whole day or maybe a weekend, depending how particular you are, especially if you're going to be repainting parts and all that, and if you're going to be rebuilding whole front end or getting really into it. But on that point, before you do a big brake upgrade like this, make sure everything else is in good shape, like your suspension, your ball joints, your control arm bushings, sway bar bushings, tie rod ends. Make sure all that front suspension, the shocks, everything on the suspension is good before you go put a big brake kit on it, because you will be putting a lot more load on those suspension components when you brake with a big brake kit, obviously. Anyway, I'm going to go to fast forward and get that off. And then I'll show you a couple of more tricks you need to know. Okay, the hub assembly is off, the brake caliper is off, the rotor's off. That didn't take long at all. I just have to use a little more heat to get the hub bolts off. Now, one of the tips I want to give you is on these bolts here. These are the caliper bracket bolts. You will be reusing them, and to my understanding, they don't make these anymore, so don't lose them. They also have these thick washers. You don't want to lose them. And you want to get these super clean. In other words, you use a wire wheel on a bench grinder. If you don't have a bench grinder, it's no big deal. You can use like a scouring pad or steel wool and clean the threads real good, because you will be putting Loctite on them. Same with these bolts for the hub assembly if you do the hub assembly. Now, I know I said I wasn't going to get into disassembling the hub assembly. I am going to give one quick tip that's hopefully helpful, so hold on a second. And the tip I'm going to give is excess in this bolt. Instead of, if you don't, like, right, I don't have a deep socket to go from this end. This is a 15 millimeter, by the way. So what you do, if you look at your hub assembly, all of them will have this big hole in it, and that's so you can get these bolts out, because that's pretty much the only way you're going to get them out. Hopefully you can see that. It's the only way of getting it out is that big hole. So what you do is you take your 15 millimeter socket, put it on the head of the bolt, take an extension, put it through, and just like that you can reach the bolt. And you don't really need a swivel on there or anything. It's enough of an angle that you can get it. Put a 15 millimeter box wrench on that end to hold the nut from spinning, and break it loose. Like I said, use heat. And that's all it is really for these hub assemblies, is remove the ABS sensor first, remove those 4 bolts, clean everything up, put it back together. Okay, it's time for dreaded anti-seize. And dreaded, I mean, because it gets everywhere. Now, this is metal. The hats on the brake rotors are aluminum. You don't want them fusing together in any way. So put some anti-seize on this surface and around the center of this hub. Now, even though this is painted, I'm still going to put that on to keep it from sticking to the paint. And even if you have stock brake rotors, you should put this on. It keeps it from rusting together. So something to keep in mind. You don't need a lot. Just put it around like that. And what I do is I just smear it like that. I'll make sure you wear rubber gloves. Smear it around. Just a real thin layer. And after you're done, you take these gloves off and throw them away. Now you also want to put just a little bit on the threads when you go to put, don't do that till you put your wheels on. I already got enough on there, I probably don't need it, but just something to keep in mind. So, like I said, put this away. Maybe take a rag and go over that a little bit. Take off any excess. You only need a thin layer. Take off the excess. Take the gloves, take the rag. And throw both of them away. Yep, and I still managed to get some on my hands. Okay, let's get on to these Caliper mountain brackets. Thing I forgot to mention at the beginning of the video is make sure you read these instructions thoroughly. Make sure you open up everything. Make sure you have everything. And it's a good thing I did, because if you look, the instructions say on these bolts here to use light oil and torque them down. And then there's a this supersedes it. The instructions that come with the shim says to not use oil, and it gives them torque spec. So something to keep in mind. I'm guessing they changed that because people, instead of putting a little oil, were probably putting gobs of oil on there. I'm just saying. I might be wrong. Or they're putting oil on there that causes it to be too slippery maybe, and you over torque them. So I don't know about that. But the reason they have these shims is this bracket's going to bolt to the knuckle. The caliper is going to go, hopefully you can see that, over the top like that. And basically, these shims here adjust the pad height in relation to the brake rotor. So it's centered on the brake rotor. These shims here go between caliper mountain bracket and a knuckle, and that adjusts the center line of the brake caliper so you can get exactly center. Now it says to start with one shim on each bolt. Now, even though these bolts here, the factory bolts, get Loctite, do not Loctite them until final assembly. In other words, I'm going to bolt everything together without Loctite, shim everything, take it apart, reshim it until everything is just right. Then, after I test fit the wheel for clearances and all that good stuff, I will go ahead, Loctite everything, and then I'll go ahead and disconnect the factory brake line hose and install the Wilwood hose and then bleed. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do now. Okay, hopefully you can see this. The brake caliper is mounted temporarily and shimmed. And best way I find to check this, and before you even do this, of course you got to mount the rotor first, then the caliper. But when you mount this rotor, put a couple of lug nuts on it, just snug them down. They don't have to be real tight to keep the rotor from shaking. Now, the best way I found is to use a dial caliper. And let me loosen that up. Now, I have one set of shims on there. Okay. And I am at 680. Let me get that better. Make sure it's squared up good when you do this. About 681 thousandths of an inch. And I can't take a measurement this side because this here is in the way. So what I'm going to do is loosen it up. Bring the caliper in. If you never used a pair, turn them upside down. Obviously I can't see them that way. So then you expand them, square them up, hold it steady. And I got a reading of 700 thousandths. Now the shims are 15 thousandths, so I basically need 10 thousandths more on that side, which means I actually got to remove the shims and not run any shims at all. That's exactly what happened on the other side. I ended up using no shims at all. So I'll go ahead and do that and see what kind of measurement I get. That'll won't be exactly center, but within 5 thousandths, I'm sure that's more than accurate as can be. Okay, I don't think I'm going to be able to show you this in detail, but basically I want to, you want to move the caliper either further from the center line or closer to the center line in order to get the top of the pad to ride on the surface. And I don't know if you can see that or not. You know what? I'm going to take these brake pads out real quick since they come in and out so quick, and I will give you a quick, make it easier. If you look at the pad surface, right now, there's this bevel here. I'm not sure if you guys can see that or not. There's like a beveled edge right here. I'll use my end of my dial caliper as a pointing here. Just hold on a second. Okay, right along here is that beveled edge. You don't want the pad riding above that beveled edge. See there? I don't know if you can see it. I'll get another shot there. You can see, you don't want, I'm going to exaggerate it. You don't want it above that beveled edge. You want it exactly flush with the beveled edge, like that. See there? Not there. There. So the pad is making 100% contact with the brake rotor. You don't want it above. If you do, as the pad wears, it will bevel over, so to speak, and start grinding into the top of the brake rotor. That's why you don't want to do that. So I'm going to have to remove the shims. I only have one set of shims, so I'm going to end up without no shims on this at all, which is exactly what happened on the other side. So I guess let me get that off and put it back together and then check it. And then I'll do a final assembly and start to get work on that brake line. Okay, I'm not sure if you can see that good, but everything's tightened down. I think the pads are in very good position, as good as I'm going to get them. I'm real happy with this. Now I'm going to remove the back caliper bracket bolts. These right here. Remove one at a time. Put Loctite on it. Torque it down to the recommended torque spec in the Wilwood instructions. And the same with these nuts here. I'll go ahead and remove those. Torque them down. And tighten up the retainer bolt here for the pads. Then I am going to show you the best way to test fit one wheel on this before I go ahead and do the brake line. So, be right back. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and test fit the wheel. And this is a nice shiny new caliper. I don't want to ding it. So I'm going to cover it either with a towel, or in this case I got this cloth. This way when I place the wheel over it, I don't bang the wheel into it. I'm going to go ahead and remove the lug nuts, temporary lug nuts I had in place to hold the caliper steady. Put the wheel on. I already know it's going to fit because it fit the other side. But I'll get it on there for you. And I'll show you how much clearance there is. There's actually quite a bit. Okay, there we go. As you can see, I hope you can see all the clearance that we have. I could have probably, with these wheels, I probably could have even managed to get a 14-inch in there. Plenty of clearance. Now, the only thing I need to do is hook up that brake line, bleed it, and then check that the brake line has plenty of stretch to it when it's in full wheel lock from left to right. So, I'll get onto that. Now, they do recommend that you check the wheel clearance first, and then Loctite and torque everything. I already knew it was going to be from the other side, so that wasn't a big deal. I also want to get one of the factory wheels up here, the original 90 wheels up here, and test fit them. So this way everyone knows if they fit. So maybe I'll be right back with that. Okay, I am back, and as you can see, it fits and clears the factory wheel. It is a lot closer. I don't know if you can see that or not. And of course, you can't see the brake rotor and caliper as nice with the factory wheels. But if anyone's going to be doing this kit and wants to know if the factory wheels on a 90 Corvette fit, they fit and clear. Okay, everything's together. I just got to put the wheel on, bolt everything up. This line's on. I didn't go over putting the line on. It's just pretty simple. You're going to have fluid go all over. Make sure your master cylinder doesn't go dry. If the master cylinder goes dry, you're going to end up having to bleed the whole system, activate the ABS, all that stuff. But the thing you want to check for is clearance. Let me move this away a little bit. I'll probably have to move it away a little bit. And lock to lock, of course. Make sure there's clearance that way for this hose. And when I mean clearance, I mean for the hose. And you don't only want to check that this isn't too tight. Originally on the other side, I had this 90-degree fitting right there. I had it straight up. And with it like that, the hose was super tight. Not only that, when I put the wheel on that side, I noticed that this hose, let me straighten that out again, was actually coming up and hitting up against the inside of the wheel weight. So if I would have left it like that and didn't check it, it probably would have knocked the wheel weight off. This stainless steel braided hose probably would have ended up making a big mark on the inside of the wheel. So everything's bled. The pedal feels really firm. I'm just going to go around and check for leaks. Again, don't forget to use those dust caps. I'm a big believer in them, especially if you live in the Northeast like I do. Let me see. Whew, it is stupid humid here in the Northeast. I'm sweating soaking wet. Let's stop right here, and I'll give a little ending and briefing and go go over a few things and call it an end to this video for now. Okay, I'm gonna call it a day on this project. I'm gonna get, well, not a day, but I'm gonna get the wheels on. First I'm gonna take a break. It's like I said, it's super humid here. It's not hot, it's humid. I mean, it's humidity this year in this part of the country is just crazy. But I'm gonna go get the wheels on and get them torqued down. Of course, get them off the jack stands, take it for a test ride. I want to test it just the way it is. I am going to do more to the brake system, but that'll be in future video. I was going to do a lot more today, but I have some events I'm going to try to attend. So anyway, in the future video will be on the test drive. Like I said, with the system installed just the way it is from Wildwood. Everything stock, everything else being stock, more or less, or as far as the brake system, the only thing on the rear that isn't stock, of course, is the brake rotors, and I run the Hawk HPS street pads. That being said, I'm going to be putting this back up after the test drive, hopefully maybe later this week or next weekend, who knows. I'll be putting in a brake bias spring from Doug Rippey. I will leave links, like I said, in the description below. Always check descriptions, always check the comment section, because sometimes I add stuff to my videos. If you made it this far in the video, I hope you see that. My battery's about ready to go dead. Anyway, the brake bias spring, if you don't know what it is, that helps move more brake pressure to the rear to help balance things out a little better. Like I said, I want to test it just the way it is without it, see how it is. That's it. My battery's just about dead, so I want everybody to have a great day, and God bless.